is fat loss harder for women, or is fat loss different for women? Because there are a few things that we need to effectively cover to actually finish out and round out this fat loss series, because there are some differences between men and women when it comes to fat loss. And while that oftentimes doesn't necessarily present a huge barrier, like it's not like the fundamentals that we have been talking about change drastically. Like if you want to lose some fat, you still need to be in a calorie deficit, whether you're a guy, a woman, a child, a fucking capybara, I don't know. Like it's still thermodynamics at the end of the day, right? So that doesn't necessarily change. However, there are obviously differences between men and women in terms of the physiology, we'll say, right? Down to the cellular level, there are obviously differences here. And we need to account for those differences if we are to actually get the results that we want, right? So that's what we're discussing today. What are your initial thoughts, Gary? Like if someone comes up to you or messages you on Instagram or whatever, and they're like, is it harder? Is the fact that I'm a woman going to make it harder to lose fat? Like, what are you saying? What's your initial, elevator pitch, if it will, like 30-second answer?
My elevator pitch would be that on average, fat loss is not necessarily harder for women, but that there's certain circumstances within the month, within the year, within the lifespan that can certainly make it more challenging. And obviously, there's a number of unique aspects to female physiology, but zooming out from just the individual physiological aspects like hormones or whatever, there's also the very obvious things like childbirth, for example, which presents a barrier because obviously if someone is on the path to losing body weight, they're not going to be doing that during pregnancy. And if a woman wants to have, let's say, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 kids, they might be taking 5 to 10 years potentially of their life out to basically have their kids, and it's very difficult for them to engage in a prolonged period of fat loss, obviously. And with that comes not just the inherent requirement for body weight gain and the physiological changes during that time, but also the result of childbirth and the burden on the mother that is often present with not being able to sleep as well when kids are young, and all those sorts of things, all the responsibilities that come with parenting. So they're certainly barriers to fat loss.
Just even
And
on top of that as well, like you have,
yeah,
I can't remember the actual name they gave it, but I think it's like the depleted nutrient hypothesis, where like
yeah,
basically you need like 2 years, I think it is the time frame in between children to actually replete a lot of the vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, etc., that you used up to actually basically photocopy the human race, which is very beneficial. I like humans. Like you use up a lot of nutrients. So being in an extended fat loss phase, post pregnancy, in that kind of postpartum window, is not necessarily a good idea for a lot of people, especially if they haven't had the most nutritious diet going into that. And then obviously, again, on top of that, you could be breastfeeding as well. So like, do you want your milk supply to be impacted as well? Like there's a
mm-hmm.
load of things. And like you said, like we could be talking about, even if you only have like 3 kids, like a relatively low number of kids, especially in Ireland, like, we like to have lots of kids. And like I come from a family of 10, but yourself, like we like to have lots of kids. Like if you're having lots of kids, you could literally, even if it's like, say, let's see if only 3 kids, like you could still be out, effectively out for 3 years in terms of, the actual pregnancy itself, the recovery after that, the breastfeeding, the first, 1 to 2 years of a child's life. It's just harder in terms of getting back into your normal, like potentially you want to go back to work, and like all that kind of stuff. And as you said, like the societal burden generally falls on women to look after and raise children. So we could be looking at 10 years. So it is a significant amount of time out of your life. Like what is the average life expectancy in Ireland? I think it's 81 or something like that. It's like that's 1/8 of your life potentially.